So, you clicked on this video to learn about the Constitution. Either you just watched Hamilton and want to learn more, or you're trying to cram for a test about US history that you need to do tomorrow, and this is your only hope. Well, then you're lucky either way, because in this video, I will summarize the important parts of the US Constitution so that you don't have to read through the complicated English handwriting of an ex-Englishman. Make sure you take notes, because I'm about to start talking a bit fast. Starting off with Article 1, this explains the two houses of Congress known as legislation. Representatives are a lower house of legislation. They get 2 years in office, and to be a representative, you need to be at least 25 years old and be a citizen for 7 years. Senate is the upper house of legislation. They get 6 years in office each, and to be part of the Senate, you must be 30 years old and be a US citizen for 9 years. Other important parts of Article 1 would be the following. All bills must be approved by both houses to be sent to the president, and if the president vetoes the bill, a 2/3 majority from both parties would be needed to go against the veto. Next up we have Article 2, which explains the executive branch, the most powerful branch of the government. To be a presidential candidate, you must be 35 years old, born in the USA, and be elected by the Electoral College, although the Electoral College part might change depending on who becomes president as of 2021. The president and vice president normally serves 4 years, but that depends on some circumstances. I'll get into that later. It also explains impeachment, which is when a legislative house charges against someone in the government. Article 3 explains the judiciary branch. The Supreme Court is the highest court in government, and they usually decide whether or not something is constitutional. It also explains the concept of treason, which is basically betraying the country. Article 4 just explains the states' rights. Basically, states have to respect the laws of other states, citizens will be treated equally and fairly in all states, and also talks about a power by the people law. It just basically explains the US citizens have the ability to choose who they want in office, from mayors to presidents. Article 5 explains the rules of changing the Constitution. To shorten it up, at least 2/3 of representatives, 2/3 of the Senate, and 3/4 of the states must approve the change. Article 6 just explains that the Constitution is the highest law of the entire country, and that government officials must swear to the Constitution before going into office. Article 7, finally, just says that the Constitution had to be agreed upon by 9 of the 13 states to be approved. Now, let's move on to the 27 amendments, starting off with the original 10. The First Amendment is my favorite, which is the right to the freedom of speech, religion, press, petition, and assembly. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms, almost every American's favorite amendment. The Third Amendment explains that the army can't force you to have them live with you. Like, come on, who wants some random British soldier eating all your food and watching you while you sleep? I'm pretty sure no one would like that. The Fourth Amendment explains that the government can't take anything of yours or search you without a warrant. You should always ask an officer if they have a warrant if they want to come in your house for any reason, even if it's to have a cup of coffee or something. The Fifth Amendment says that the accused must be in front of a jury to be convicted of a crime. You don't have to say that you actually committed that crime, and that you will be sent to jail without trial if you perform that crime again. Amendment 6 says that your trial will be as quick as needed, and that the accused will always be allowed a lawyer, even if they can't afford one. The Seventh Amendment just says that a jury will always be guaranteed for a federal civil court case. The Eighth Amendment explains that punishments will be fair and not cruel. So basically, they can't put you on the electric chair or put you on the stocks for not paying off your speeding ticket. It also explains that large fines that are not proportionate to the crime will not be permitted at any time. The Ninth Amendment says that other rights may exist, and if they don't exist, that doesn't always mean that you don't have the right to. For example, everyone has the right to a cell phone or internet access, of course. These aren't mentioned in the Constitution. Why? Because it's just common sense. The 10th Amendment just explains that states can't and never will have the same power as the federal government. So basically, New York can't tell Canada that they want to go to war with them or something. That's just very disproportionate to its governmental ranking. Now that we got the first 10 out of the way, let's get to the new 17 amendments. Starting off with 11, it explains that someone from one state can't sue someone in another in federal court. 12 just says that the president and vice president must be voted separately. The 13th Amendment is another favorite of mine because it abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment guaranteed civil rights for all American citizens, although this wasn't really in full effect until the 1960s. But the 15th Amendment allowed people of color to vote, although people still managed to find a way to stop them from voting, which sucked a lot. The 16th Amendment allowed the US to collect income tax. That's just what it sounds like, taxes based off your personal income. The 17th Amendment allowed citizens to be able to vote for the senators of their state. Then we have the 18th Amendment. This one just called on the prohibition of alcohol. You couldn't sell or transport any beer, whiskey, or anything that could get you drunk. To cheer us up though, we got the 19th Amendment, which finally let all genders to be able to vote. The 20th Amendment just changed time frames for federal election, one of which was that Inauguration Day was moved from March 5th to January 20th, because it was pretty unnecessary to wait that long for the new president to come into office. Going back to the terrible 18th Amendment, the 21st Amendment got us hooked up, because it repealed the 18th Amendment. Now you didn't have to sneak some booze in your boot just so you can sneak a quick drink. The 22nd Amendment just says that the president can't serve more than 2 terms in office, which just means that they can't stay in office for more than 10 years. In the case that the vice president takes over the original president's spot and decides to run for president next term. The 23rd Amendment allowed people in Washington, D.C. to be able to vote and have representatives, although it doesn't add much since they have like 2 representatives. The 24th Amendment is great because it says that people can in no way not be kept from voting. This includes things such as literacy tests and poll taxes. It's a shame that it took so long for them to do this, however. The 25th Amendment explains that when the president is not able to perform duties for any reason, the vice president takes his place. If the vice president is unable to perform duties, the Speaker of the House has to take power. And if they can't perform duties, then it just keeps going down the presidential line of succession until next term. I'll provide a link in the description if you want to check that out for yourself. It's pretty interesting. The 26th Amendment allowed people 18 and over to vote. And finally, the 27th Amendment explains that any law that increases the pay of legislation cannot be completely passed until another election. Well, I hope this helped you learn something new and possibly help you pass that test you crammed for. Have a good night, and I'll see you in another video.